you're not going to be a dictator, are you? I said, no, 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 other than day one.
Donald Trump has successfully moved the Overton window in a way that is as dangerous for the future of democracy in this country as anything else.
This is what Vout and Project 2025 wanted.
Newsom is he's daring Tom Homan to come and arrest him. Should he do it? I would do it if I were Tom. I think it's great.
They control the Congress, they control the White House, and they control the courts. And so, of course, they're massively, massively overreaching. And yes, they are getting away with it right now.
This is clearly a man who cannot tolerate criticism of him or what he does, which is exactly what authoritarianism is all about.
The New York Times is just as fake as CNN and MSDNC. They really are the enemy of the people.
What he is saying, rather bluntly, if you stand up to Donald Trump, he will punish you.
Protesters in Philadelphia, state capitals in California, Minnesota, Michigan, Texas, Wisconsin, Indiana, and others showed up to oppose Trump, Musk, and Project 2025.
The US and President Trump has overseen America's largest military parade in decades as nationwide protests take place against his leadership.
Demonstrations are happening right across the United States today to oppose the Trump administration.
Two visions of America. On a day the country's deepening divide was there for all the world to see.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Jeff Waldorf, and you are watching Logically Left right here, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. We're back. It's Tuesday, and I've got a lot of stuff to talk about. Okay, so, man, we got people going to prison for Facebook memes. So that's not a joke. Trump's America has to do with Charlie Kirk and the conservative outrage over anyone who apparently didn't care too much about his murder. Okay, so there's that. We have Marjorie Greene versus the Republican Party, but it gets more interesting. Okay, this is an interesting fight that we're having in the Republican Party, breaking up with the GOP on some pretty serious issues, including the ICE raids. So, fun times. We've got Dr. Phil in his MAGA makeover. Not doing well. We got Newsmax versus Newsmax and Fox News versus Pete Hegseth. That's insane. And then, of course, what happens when private equity takes over your hospital? The answer, of course, is people die. Shocker. Again, I'm not exactly surprised here. Really? But there you are. Hey, yeah, Marjorie's an agent of chaos. Exactly, but you know what? I'll take it. Broken clocks and all. There seems to be a lot of broken clocks over there at Marjorie Taylor Greene's house. So, all right, so we're going to talk about it. With that said, it's good to be back here on this Tuesday afternoon. Please, if you haven't already, like and share the stream. Very important that you do so on all the various platforms that we are streaming on. So, yeah, if you could just help me out there, would appreciate it. With that said, I suppose we should probably start. Okay, start actually doing content. Be a good idea. But yeah. Like and share, leave a comment, all that wonderful stuff. With that said, let's do it. The meme police, of course. A new day, new man-made horrors. Yay. Okay. A Tennessee man was arrested after posting a meme on Facebook. I mean, that sentence is insane. What? Why are things like this happening? How does something like this happen? Well, I'll get into the details, right? And what is a massive violation of this man's free speech? A former cop, which makes it even more interesting, right? Posted a meme of Donald Trump. Wait, what? Hold on. Posting a meme of Trump that quotes him, how is that worthy of jail time? I don't understand. Well, he was posting it in a thread about Charlie Kirk, okay? Specifically a memorial, right? Or a vigil, I should say. Larry Bouchard, the 61-year-old former cop, posted an image like this. Okay, so you can see that's from everytown.org. And it's quoting the Perry High School mass shooting. We have to get over it. You know, the mass shootings in this country. You know what? We got to get over it, though. Okay, yes, children are murdered in their classrooms by deranged gunmen, but you know what? We just have to get over it. You know, something, Second Amendment. Bit of an irony here, as this Trump administration basically now has a list of gun owners. Yeah. You know that whole hysteria about how the government's gonna make a database of all the gun owners in this country and take away the Second Amendment. This is what the Trump administration's doing, is getting that database. So, I'm just saying, it's really weird. But anyway, the text added to the image about this, again, this quote that he used in the context of, why should I care about a slain podcaster? He posted, this seems relevant today. And that is a good question. Why the hell should I care about these kinds of shootings when the president of the United States, every time a deranged gunman goes and murders a bunch of school kids, you know, he just says after that, get over it. Just get over it. What? No, no. Now, of course, unfortunately, you know, a lot of Republicans that have already gotten over all of those shootings because, look, if a bunch of kids getting murdered in the classroom does not, you know, lead to any changes, any changes when it comes to gun laws, then, I mean, there's nothing that's going to change. The president of the United States, when he was a candidate, was also shot at by a deranged right-winger, okay, with a gun. Still didn't lead to any changes when it comes to gun laws. So nothing will ever change, okay? As long as we have these same people in charge that get paid by the gun lobby. But anyway, now, speaking of mass shootings, by the way, there were even more mass shootings over the weekend. Like, for example, what happened in Leland, Mississippi, and 2 other universities in the state that were also celebrating homecoming. I mean, there's just shootings everywhere. But Donald Trump says, get over it, unless it's his friend Charlie. Look, obviously, mass shootings and assassinations are horrible. You know, I don't like that we live in a country where this is normal, okay? But, you know, look, we should not be getting over it, okay? That's my point. We should not be getting over this, okay? Now, Charlie Kirk was shot by a cis white male while talking about mass shootings and was, of course, blaming them on trans people and gang members, which is kind of ironic, but I'm just saying. But anyway, that post triggered some of the people on the thread, which apparently included police officers. On September 21st, he had posted, received a visit from the Lexington PD regarding my posted meme. According to Sheriff Nick Weems of Perry County, numerous teachers, parents, and students had interpreted Bouchard's meme as a threat to carry out a similar shooting at nearby Perry County High School. No, I'm not sure how you can get that from this, or even the context, okay, of where it was posted. But nonetheless, Bouchard was arrested the following morning on a charge of threatening mass violence on school property and activities, which is a Class E felony punishable by between 1 and 6 years in prison and up to a $3,000 fine. Not only that, but his bail, guess what, was set at $2 million. Okay, there are people who do actual heinous crimes that do not get $2 million bail. Again, this was for a meme using a quote from our president about a different school shooting. Insane. And to add to the insanity, you have Tennessee, who just recently passed a law that went into effect July 1st, which says that anybody posting bond has to put up at least 10% of the total amount. And bail bondsmen also must. They're required to charge a premium fee of at least 5% of the total bond amount. So even just to get out of jail ahead of trial, state law says that Bouchard must have to pay a bondsman at least $210,000. And I'm pretty sure he ain't got that lying around. Who does at this point, unless you're rich? And in this country, if you're rich, you can get away with crime. Now, Bouchard had posted the Trump meme, according to Weems, right, to indicate or make the audience think it was referencing our Perry High School. No, it didn't. Investigators believe Bouchard was fully aware of the fear his post would cause and intentionally sought to create hysteria within the community. Weems also told local radio station WOPC that the meme had alluded to a hypothetical shooting at a place called Perry High School. No. It's absolutely laughable. Come on, that justification for arresting this guy and taking away his freedom of speech, by the way. Come on. I mean, it would be actually laughable if a man wasn't literally having to sit in jail over a Facebook post. This is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Okay? Now, in a statement to the Tennessean, Weems singled out this Trump meme as the only offender, really, saying that while other posts that he had made were quote-unquote hate memes, okay, they were not against the law and would be recognized as free speech. Hate memes, everybody. What do you mean hate memes? Well, one of them was Charlie Kirk at pretty much at the moment that he was shot, sitting at a desk, and it basically is the Steven Crowder setup where it said, release the Epstein files. Changed my mind. Okay. Another was a Sopranos meme where you had Tony and I believe it's his wife. I'm not a huge Sopranos person, sorry. But it said, Tony, Charlie Kirk died. And him responding, so, I don't give a shit. Provocative? Sure. But remind me what MAGA said about people's feelings. I believe it was something along the lines of, fuck your feelings. Yeah, that's what they would say. But suddenly now they've got a lot of feelings and are throwing people in jail. Okay, calling the cops on people over Facebook memes for not feeling sad about a podcaster who was pew-pewed, okay? This is, by the way, what the First Amendment was created to prevent. And yet here we are, clearly violating it over something that was not actually a threat. I mean, come on. True threats, by the way, is according to David Hudson, professor at Belmont University School of Law, speaking to Reason, okay, which is a libertarian blog, said true threats are not protected speech, but not everything is a true threat. This seems to me to be a heated rhetorical hyperbole, which is an incredibly important concept, or should be, in true threat type cases. Yeah, and again, this was not a true threat at all. But yet, now you have a man that is in jail over his speech. And even if the case gets thrown out, which I think it's likely that it will be, because it should be, this man still will have spent months in jail before being given his first hearing. So, because he couldn't make the insane amount of bond money that it would require. I mean, this case right here, and the hunt that this regime has went on for those who didn't fall to their knees immediately and sob publicly over the death of a right-wing podcaster, shows you how selective many of these people are when it comes to who still gets rights in this country, i.e. speech, and who doesn't. All right. So apparently a lot of you want me to get right to the Marjorie Taylor Greene stuff in the chat. So we're going to do that. Okay. While I have some pretty big differences with Marjorie Taylor Greene when it comes to policy and, well, a lot, basically, I do appreciate that she is currently going to war with the Republican establishment. And make no mistake, Donald Trump is the establishment replacing the old establishment. Just saying. Now, I had already mentioned in previous videos how she's one of the 4 Republicans who signed on to the discharge petition to release the Epstein files. Kind of a big deal. That's against the wishes of President Donald Trump and Republican leadership like Mike Johnson. Also talked about how she wants to work with Democrats to extend the ACA tax credits that are set to expire at the end of the year because, you know, her daughter her adult daughter is going to end up paying basically through the nose, which, again, she would join the 20 million other people who rely on those ACA subsidies to be able to afford their health insurance, which is already too expensive. Okay. And that's, again, something GOP leadership is not in favor of. I also talked about how she had criticized the men in her party for being a little bit sexist. A little bit. But there's more now. It's getting even better because this woman is going scorched earth, okay? And I'm here for it. I'm here for it, okay? Now, during an appearance on Tim Dillon's podcast, who's a right-wing comedian, she called out ICE raids. ICE raids! She said that while she supports having a secure border and strong immigration laws, she said there needs to be a smarter plan than just rounding people up. What is going on here? Here's her direct quote. As a conservative and a business owner in the construction industry, an industry that is massively impacted, by the way, by the removal of immigrants, and as a realist, I can say we have to do something about labor. And it needs to be a smarter plan than just rounding up every single person and deporting them just like that. I'm going to get pushback for this, but I'm just living in reality from here on out. If anyone's mad at me for saying the truth, then I'm sorry. So now, what she talks about on immigration sounds kind of like what Kamala Harris wanted to do. I mean, that was basically Harris's immigration plan. More border security, more deportations of criminals, following what Joe Biden had done, okay? Biden was also doing lots of deportations and focusing on criminals, okay? So that was their immigration plan already. Now, here's the other thing. While he was doing that, and while Obama, for example, was deporter-in-chief, they would give temporary protected status to Cuban immigrants, Haitian immigrants, folks from Venezuela, refugees from Central America, you know, basically giving them status so they can live and work in this country legally. While Trump, during the campaign, not only pressured the party to reject more draconian, Biden's more draconian bill, because it's like, I run on immigration. If you pass this, I can't run on that. Oh, okay. Well, anyway, he was saying they're eating the cats, they're eating the dogs. Which, no, they're not. not true at all. And he said that about the Haitian immigrants, by the way. So that's the reality here, okay? Marjorie Taylor Greene is kind of sounding a bit like Kamala Harris now, okay? And it really does show you how insane the right wing has gone, which, by the way, until recently included Marjorie Taylor Greene in the insanity. And so her new direction is very interesting because now she seems to be trying to be a voice of reason on the right wing, which is very strange. In fact, on the same show, she also went after Trump's tariffs and criticized crypto. What? She says, I'm talking to major manufacturing companies they're saying we support the president, we support what he's trying, his long-term goal, but we're having problems with the tariffs. And now we're having problems. We can't get supplies from this country, and we can't get supplies for this country. And there's problems. But have regular people's bank accounts been affected? Has the stress come off? No, that has not happened yet. And that needs to be the major focus. It shouldn't be about helping your crypto donors, your AI donors, or welcoming in these people that hated you and spent money to try to beat you, but all of a sudden are excited to come out to the new Rose Garden patio. That shouldn't be the focus. So, okay. I agree. I mean, again, super interesting, right? So, but of course, here's the thing. She obviously doesn't call up Donald Trump by name. Why? Because she still believes in him. Okay, she's still a Trumper. But what's interesting is there's cracks that have formed. Okay, there's some cracks that are forming. And I think there's some cracks forming among some conservatives as well. And I think a lot of them are starting to notice that Trump isn't really calling the shots here because his brain's basically jello. This man is not well. Okay. Who is actually calling the shots are people like Stephen Miller and maybe some of his other advisors as well. But Miller is the guy. He's the one that's ordering the immigration raids. He's basically running the show. And look, there's also people like Peter Thiel's, one of Donald Trump's billionaire backers, Mark Andreessen, another billionaire. There's a lot of people that are influencing the policies that are coming out of this administration while Donald Trump goes and just golfs. Okay? And so now the challenge, of course, is to convince people like Marjorie Greene that Donald Trump is going along with this because it's also what he wants. Remember, this man is extremely lazy. So he just says, I don't know, just make me richer or you make me more popular, do something, I don't know, immigration, whatever. Just do this. And then, okay. And then he goes off and does something else. Okay. But he also does want these things. He is not a powerless person, even though his brain is jello. Okay. And so, look, he either wants this, which he does, I think, and doesn't really care enough about these issues to put a stop to what Miller and some of the others are doing. Guy loves the corruption. He loves the AI, the crypto donations, all those things. The ICE raids, he enjoys them because he's a racist, obviously, and doesn't care that he's hurting regular people. And of course, he also doesn't care that he's hurting the farmers with the tariffs, the farmers that voted for him, or any of that. He just doesn't seem to care all that much. But, funny enough, he does seem to care that Marjorie Greene is speaking out against some of his policies. In fact, he called at least 2 senior Republicans in recent months to ask, hey, what's going on with Marge? What's going on with her? She used to be such a good little sycophant. And now she's actually questioning my policies? What's going on here? Well, what's going on is she's starting to see a little bit behind the curtain, okay? And it's not just Trump. It's about what Republicans do when they're in power. They've got full control of the government. They have been enacting their agenda without really any pushback, okay? And MAGA voters, surprise, they're actually worse off. That's not exactly a surprise to me. I'm not over here, with a Pikachu face or anything like that. No, because I know, and most people know, that Republican policies are generally to just help the rich, and they punish everyone else. That's it. But yet, people like Marge, they didn't expect this one. They got what they wanted, a red wave, and now, like the farmers, they're drowning. That's really it. And you know what? We told you. We told you so. That said, I wouldn't expect Marjorie Greene to be joining the left at all. No, of course not. That said, she is making some sense, which I didn't have on my 2025 bingo card. Now, let's see how long this one lasts, okay? And if she does end up breaking with the Republicans on some of their worst policies and actually does something to help people, well, then I just say credit where credit is due. It's weird times. Weird times. All right. Here we go. Don't forget, Marjorie Greene isn't owned by corporate PACs. There's not really a line for her to toe unless she chooses to. All right. The Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, is getting some pushback over some of his new draconian rules when it comes to press access at the Pentagon. You could say that he's having a bit of a war with the press. Now, on Friday, Hegseth had demanded that reporters sign a new in-brief for media members agreement, or by Tuesday, surrender their access to the Pentagon. So what is this in-brief order for media members? Basically, it it forbids journalists from soliciting tips, photographing, or even sketching what they might see inside the building. Now, that is, of course, a huge limit on the freedom of the press here, which is it's problematic. Now, the policy only allows for Department of War approved information to be obtained by journalists, which would effectively turn them into stenographers, which is something, of course, they usually end up being anyway, but now it's official, right? Now it's official, and I'll explain that a little bit later. This change, however, has networks that are not happy about it, okay? For example, some of them, Washington Post, CNN, Guardian, the New York Times, and even several other defense outlets have refused to sign on to Hegseth's policy. You even have Fox News. Fox News, Hegseth's former bosses that are like, no, we're not going along with this. It's not just that. Newsmax, even Newsmax said, no, we're not signing this crap. In fact, the first outlet to sign on was actually One America News. Yeah, One America News Network. So there you go. They're basically admitting, yeah, of course we do propaganda here. Oh yeah, One America News. We are all about that propaganda, baby. I mean, and I'm not saying that the others don't do it. It's just, on this, apparently, bridge too far. Look, even the Pentagon Press Association condemned the policy, okay? Saying, this Wednesday, most Pentagon Press Association members seem likely to hand over their badges rather than acknowledge a policy that gags Pentagon employees and threatens retaliation against reporters who seek out information that has not been pre-approved for release. Pentagon spokesperson Sean Parnell, of course, dismissed the concerns and calling this a full-blown meltdown. In a statement to Status, and insisted that this policy is, quote, what's best for our troops and the national security of this country. No, it's not. When has our national security been affected by Pentagon leaks? Okay, or just, you know, a journalist getting a tip from the Pentagon. Okay, I mean, insane. You know what would be better for national security? Keeping Pete Hegseth away from any signal chats. You know, that would help. And what would help even more is just getting rid of Pete Hegseth. The man is not qualified to serve in that role whatsoever. This man is obsessed with leaks, okay? Obsessed with leakers. Even though the biggest leaks here came from him in private signal chats. And, you know, speaking of other leaks, his liver is probably leaking too, you know, from all the booze. But anyway, here's the interesting thing here. The most interesting thing here is obviously these are not all liberal outlets. In fact, the Washington Post is proudly a conservative paper now. Okay, that's according to Washington Post columnist Mark Thiessen, I believe, who had bragged that the newspaper's opinion section was now thoroughly conservative after Trump had publicly praised his most recent op-ed. Not only that, but owner Jeff Bezos had already said last year that we're going to be writing every day in support and defense of two pillars: personal liberties and free markets. Oh boy. Well, you know, we'll cover other topics too, of course, but viewpoints opposing those pillars will be left to be published by others. So, you know, making it official that, yeah, Washington Post, conservative. As if we didn't already kind of figure that out. But anyway, the same night he announced that, by the way, Bezos was having dinner with Donald Trump. Yes, they're conservative. They're conservative. Obviously, Newsmax, conservative. CBS News, which is owned by the Ellisons, Larry and David. David's running it, I believe. They're huge Trump supporters. Fox News, obviously, all of them are against this, except for One American News. Okay, very interesting development here in this war against the press. Okay, now let me get to why I think this is happening. Look, part of this is because of the way supposed leaks had happened in the past. So what do I mean by that? Well, the Pentagon leadership wanted to, for example, in certain things, present a narrative. And what better way to do that than to leak these narratives or these scoops that are actually Pentagon approved, but people don't want to, you know, the people in charge don't want everyone to know that. So it gets leaked to a reporter, okay? They would direct that leak. And then, of course, it would get out there, and it would obviously make it look like the Pentagon didn't want that to come out, even though they did. They like stuff about, you know, Iraq or whatever, their leadership, or Iran, okay? And so, oh, yeah, so we got a leak that there's something going on with Iran that may mean that we have to bomb them or something. This directive, however, ends that system. That's one of the reasons that it's getting absolutely hammered by the press, who like them scoops. Okay, they really like getting them scoops. You know, from the Pentagon. That to me really kind of explains why even conservative pro-Trump outlets are coming out against this change. And so, I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe some of them are principled, you know, supporters of the First Amendment and the freedom of the press. Okay, great. It doesn't matter to me, really, as long as you are standing up for the First Amendment and for press freedom. Okay. All right. Let's see. but he drinks gin. Okay. Lots of fun names for Mr. Pete over here. Okay. But anyway, hey, if you haven't already, please like and share the stream. With that, let's go to making fun of Dr. Phil. Former daytime TV personality Dr. Phil has been trying to build a pro-Trump media outlet. And it's not going well. So this is called Merit Street Media. Okay, and it was launched in 2024, and they started out with big hopes and dreams, and then immediately began to run into big problems. Okay, within months of launching, you had dozens of employees that were laid off, as it only averaged about 27,000 weekly viewers. Look, I get more daily viewers than that. I'm just saying. Okay, even with the algorithm changes here on YouTube, which have just been absolutely devastating, I still get more weekly viewers than that. But anyway, not only that, but his broadcasting partnerships completely floundered, and in July, the company ended up filing for bankruptcy. Oops. Sad day for you. Okay. But and also, that's not the only problem it has. It also got hit by a lawsuit from one of its distributors, Trinity Broadcasting Network, which accused McGraw of fraud and misrepresentation. Oops. Whoopsie. You gotta love it. You gotta love it. Now, in Slate's reporting on this, they said this: a total collapse finally kicked off this summer. In late June, Dr. Phil Primetime went on another summer hiatus, and 40 more Merit Street Media staffers were laid off. After that, McGraw ended up teaming up with Steve Harvey to launch Envoy Media, which proposed to be a platform for citizen journalism. Yeah. Okay. Now, that said, changing this and doing all the bankruptcy stuff did not impress some of their creditors, one of them being the professional bull riders. They're still coming after Dr. Phil and Merit Street Media for about $3.5 million in unpaid debt. Whoopsie. And are accusing him of orchestrating this bankruptcy to avoid paying on that debt. To which I say it couldn't happen to a better person, okay? And watching Dr. Phil go bankrupt is awesome. It's hilarious. Look, I love how the MAGA makeover that he tried going for, going from, oh, yeah, I'm a neutral TV doctor, I'm here to help everyone. Watching him go from that to, I'm against the wokes and I'm gonna go raid with ICE. I love seeing how that's just completely backfired. And it's not like it's because the right wing doesn't like celebrities. No, they keep electing celebrities. I mean, come on. But no, Dr. Phil, I think one of the big problems with Dr. Phil is he has no authenticity. Okay? He's slimy. He's slimy, and people can tell. All right? They can tell that he's, in it for the money. He's in it for the grift. And look, obviously, so is Donald Trump. Yes. However, at least Trump is able to entertain his followers. Not so much with McGraw. Okay? No one really cares about Dr. Phil. The man is not engaging or interesting at all, and his personality doesn't really stand out. I mean, like, other than his ridiculous show, okay, that he had, I mean, why would anybody pay attention to Dr. Phil? The only reason people would tune in is to see the train wrecks that he would bring on. not him. So the man, I mean, look, he lacks any shred of authenticity, okay? And tried to build this media empire at a time when there have already been so many grifters that have flocked to the right wing. And so, with all that competition, who the hell gives a damn about anything that Dr. Phil has to say? Okay. I'll never forgive Oprah for Drs. Phil and Dr. Oz. Yeah. What? A Trump ally is a fraud / sham? I know, right? Shocker.
Really?
Okay. I swear, we have a daytime television, like, government at this point, where it's just all like fraudsters and grifters and very, very unqualified people that are running very, very important things. Like Dr. Oz. By the way, Dr. Oz is running the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid. I mean, roll that around your head, okay? That man running very, very important, a very, very important agency. And of course, it's all falling apart as a result. Why is MAGA following these doctors anyway? I thought they were anti-science. Well, that's because these doctors are also anti-science. I mean, if you've listened to Dr. Oz, for example, a lot of his stuff was pseudoscience, quick supposed cures, right? For ailments that weren't actually cures. He exploited trauma for daytime TV, Dr. Phil. Absolutely. Exploited traumas and did basically what it's essentially tragedy porn, okay? Bringing people on that are deeply troubled and in order to have them basically fight on air for everyone's entertainment. It's absolutely gross. It's the Jerry Springer Fox News administration. It's like the Third Reich and the Three Stooges collaborated. Ouch. Sad but true. Sad but true. All right. I got one more story for y'all. And that's about how, private equity is it's taking over your hospital and killing your grandma. In what isn't a surprising development, a new study out showing that private equity is literally killing people. In this case, hospitals. Hospitals that have been acquired by private equity firms have actually seen their death rates increase. It's according to a study published in the Annals of Internal Medicine. Researchers found that private equity acquisition actually leads to increased deaths in places like nursing homes, increased postoperative complications for common inpatient surgeries at hospitals, and even an increase in medical conditions acquired in the hospitals. This is, for example, bloodstream infections and injuries from falls. You also have more deaths among emergency department patients that are receiving Medicare. Now, that's very important here, okay? Now, according to Martin Kenney, a professor in the Department of Human Ecology at the University of California, Davis, and author of Private Equity and the Demise of the Local, said this, quote, "Each of them sort of comes up with the same result. Private equity takes over things in the medical field, quality goes down, prices go up. And so did the profits." Shocker. Now, this study compared staff levels, wages, and patient mortality in 49 private equity acquired hospitals with 293 non-private equity control hospitals, and found that the private equity hospitals had smaller staff numbers smaller salaries, and that there were more deaths, larger deaths. There were 7 more deaths per 10,000 patients in the private equity hospitals' emergency departments. That's around 700 excess deaths among the million emergency department visits the researchers had investigated. There you go. Now, all the patient records, or all the patients whose records were included in the study, were Medicare recipients. So now think about who's on Medicare. Elderly folks and the disabled. Now, Zero Song, an associate professor of healthcare policy and medicine at Harvard, this is the Harvard Medical School, and one of the study's authors, said that one of the main things is cutting staff, okay? Especially in emergency departments that serve Medicare patients, okay? She called it especially problematic. The study, by the way, notes that private equity hospitals had cut emergency department salaries by 18.2% on average and reduced the number of full-time hospital employees by 11.6%. You know, in order to meet those quarterly profit quotas. Now, she said, some patients in emergency departments come in critically ill, requiring all hands on deck to care for them. Trauma, respiratory failure, sepsis, heart attack, and stroke are a few examples of such conditions often seen in emergency departments. He also said of Medicare patients that they may require special attention, as they are on average older with more health conditions and are more vulnerable relative to commercially insured patients. Now, those are the types of patients whom private equity does not really care for. Not only that, but hospitals, of course, don't get as much return from the Medicare reimbursement rates, since they're not all that high. So it makes me kind of think that private equity views these Medicare patients as, if they die, they die. We would rather not serve them at all, really, if we can. In fact, in many cases, these hospitals reject some of these higher risk patients in order to try to keep the costs down and their profits high. But of course, now they've expanded that to their emergency departments. In fact, according to Song's study, private equity-owned hospitals transferred about 12% more emergency patients out to other hospitals. And those patients were more likely to have multiple conditions. Sicker patients are transferred out to other hospitals, often because the first hospital lacks the bandwidth, capacity, or resources to take care of them, Song said. Now, she said, look, that should mean that the patients that remain in the original hospital end up getting more attention overall, right? And have better outcomes. But that's not what's happening. In fact, those people are dying. More people are dying. And Song says that should be rather concerning. Quote, some cuts in expenditures may improve the efficiency of hospital operations, but other cuts may be harmful to patient care. Well, I mean, this is what happens when private equity comes into the picture, okay? They're doing to healthcare what they did to Toys R Us. But instead of, cutting some jobs here and there and maybe closing down a few stores, they're killing your grandma, basically. And there's really not any way for the average person to fight back against this. As Martin Kenney had pointed out, you can't really sue the private equity firm because the private equity firm happens to be insulated. They buy up the hospital and that just goes right into their portfolio. By law, plaintiffs have to meet a very high bar to show that these private equity firms were directly involved in the healthcare company's day-to-day operations. That's even if the firm directly profited from the cost cutting that resulted in harm. And so most people can't really bring a case that shows that. And look, basically the only thing you could do is maybe sue the hospital or whatever healthcare company you're dealing with here that caused the harm. But that doesn't really do anything to solve the problem. In fact, it basically bankrupts the hospital. It could. And then the hospital goes bankrupt and closes down or whatever. And then the patient that has been harmed still ends up holding the bag. There's no accountability for these equity firms, okay, that have been buying up pretty much everything in our economy. I mean, you know, you've got companies, of course, that have been bought by them. Like, think about Bain Capital and Mitt Romney and what they did and buying up these companies and then loading them up with debt and then taking all the money. And when the company falls apart, well, I mean, you know, they don't really lose out on anything, these firms. And so they fire a bunch of people, everybody loses their job, and then, these executives walk away with tons of money. And that's it. And they do that for companies, but they've also been buying up real estate. And that's one of the reasons why people can't get a home anymore, okay? I mean, there's plenty of supply, plenty of homes out there, plenty of places to live, but they've been bought up by private equity firms that will then turn them into rentals and rent them out at increasingly higher and higher rents. And of course, because of the decreased supply of homes, that drives up home prices. So there's that. Not only that, but they buy up food supply. Okay, you got J.D. Vance that has a firm that is invested in a firm, I should say, along with Peter Thiel, that buys up distressed farmland. And so private equity, again, controlling our food supply. And as more and more farmers go bankrupt as a result of Trump's tariffs, you're going to have even more bankruptcies and even more consolidation of our food supply being owned by private equity. And now, of course, hospitals. Hospitals. Again, they're running these companies into the ground. They're killing jobs. They're raising your rent, your home prices, and they're killing grandma and grandpa. That's one of the big problems here. Okay? And again, the hospitals are just part of a much bigger problem. And in order for that to change, however, Kenny says, well, look, Congress would have to pass a law saying that private equity firm is responsible for the activities of the firms in its portfolio. How likely is that to happen? Not very, says Kenny. Oof. Look who owns our Congress and the executive branch too. Yes, billionaires, private equity. So, I mean, it kind of feels like we're cooked here, all right? Because of all the money in politics. And, I'm a logical leftist, right? So this is in order to be a leftist, you got to be anti-capitalist. This is why I'm anti-capitalist, okay? This is the end result of unfettered capitalism, okay? And unlike what you might be able to do with some of the other industries, right? I mean, they always tell you, well, just vote for your wallet. Yeah, go pay, go get something else. Shop somewhere else. Shop around. Can't really do that. Can't really do that. When it comes to the emergency room, you don't really have much of a choice here. When it comes to healthcare, you don't really have much of a choice. It's life or death. And let me tell you, if a private equity guy can make an extra buck off letting you die, that is a sacrifice that he will gladly make. Okay? He will sacrifice you to the market. This is why things like education, this is why healthcare, food and housing, the very basics to survive should not be commodified. Okay? You shouldn't be able to make profit off these things. All right? They should be a human right. We're not talking about making shoes or PlayStations or widgets, Widgets, funny word. No, we're not talking about that. We're talking about the basic things that you need to survive. Those we have so much of we have so much of. They should be a human right. Everyone should have them. And it should be an absolute guarantee that you have a place to live, that you can have food and water. Okay? We can do that in this country. We just choose not to. Instead, we would rather, as a nation and an economy, apparently have some private equity a-holes on Wall Street come in, buy up your hospital, fire a bunch of staff so that they can get more money, even if it means grandma and grandpa die. Okay. No more morbidly rich. Indeed. Indeed. They are, billionaires are killing us. And now you have people like Elon Musk that are looking to be the world's first trillionaire. I mean, all of this is incredibly dystopian and just shows you how broken this system is, especially when that same billionaire can basically buy the presidency for Donald Trump. We're cooked. That's no other way around it. At the current time, this country just absolutely cooked. So death panels, pretty much. Yeah, it's pretty much. The one thing that the right wing always, crowed about, talked about, warned about. Death panels. Yeah, the government's going to get in the way of your health care. You're stand between you and your doctor. We would rather have a Wall Street guy do that. Oops. Yeah. So there you go. All right. That's all I got for you today. Thank you for watching the stream. Please, if you haven't already, like and share. Check out the video clips, of course, I'm going to put later on online. So starting about 4 o'clock. So if you missed any of the segments here, please go check those out, share them, all that stuff. So with that said, I'll be back, not here tomorrow, but I will be over on this space. I keep forgetting it's Tuesday. So I got my days mixed up because I had a very, very extremely busy weekend. So yeah, lots of work done there. Yeah, this space tomorrow, 2 p.m. Eastern, and then I'll be back to the normal schedule on Thursday. Thoughts on Antonio Delgado? The name doesn't seem to ring a bell for me right now, so I'll have to look it up and let you know another time. I know I should know this, but yeah. But thank you for watching. If you haven't already, please like and share. Consider becoming a patron or supporter of the show. Hit the join button below if you're on YouTube, or become a patron. Patreon.com/jeffwaldorf. Again, we do need your support to stay on the air, stay independent, and all that stuff, and stay paywall free. Okay, because that's one of the things that I want to do is not put up paywalls for people to listen and watch and to get information, because I think there's too much of that. Putting up paywalls, by the way, on articles that actually give real information, kind of partly how we did things. It's how we got here. Okay. The right wing would put up pretty much any kind of slop, but they don't put it behind a paywall. Okay. And people looking for a particular topic, they'll go to the free site, and the free site that's just nothing but it's slopaganda. That's how you get people in to misinform them. Antonio Delgado's Lieutenant Governor of New York running for governor of New York to unseat establishment Kathy Hochul as a left-wing option on Medicare for all and childcare. Oh, there you go. I like the sound of him already, but I will look into him more because you never know, right? Don't really want to have a Fetterman situation because that was bad, and you want to make sure that the person who gets elected does not become a right-wing or establishment tool. So I will do more. Slopaganda is now a word in the Oxford Dictionary. Didn't know that. But hey, good to see it. But yeah, thank you for letting me know. I'm also bad with names, by the way. But thank you, VMan 29397 for that. Yeah, Fetterman. Oof. That one hurts. He was on Majority Report. I don't get a lot of chances to watch other progressive media, but yeah, I will. I'll have to check out that interview though. All right. With that said, I'm out of here. Thank you all. Love you, and remember, change begins with you. Good night, everybody.